Okay, so
Frankie Lee here.
good to see you all. Hi, Frankie Lee.
Hello.
Hi, Sam. Hi, Heiner. Hi, Tammy. So, quick check-in. How's your day? How's your life?
This morning I've been going for a walk every morning and run, walk. So I ran, walked, skipped, expressive danced, and cried. It's great.
That's quite an exercise of your different bodies.
But did you shimmy?
No shimmying.
Yeah.
Did you do prancing?
I did some prancing. I definitely did some prancing. I think the skip is a prance.
Pretty much.
Especially for your inner deer.
Inner deer, yeah.
So I just came from the city and so I brought some spices so we can get some spices to our weaving.
That would be good. Yeah, I like
You're
spicy.
most welcome. I can share a bowl.
Well, I could check in.
Yeah, please do.
I'm still dealing with altitude.
Whoops. Please,
Sorry, is that me?
please, everybody.
I think somebody has Heiner, maybe you've got two devices. Yeah.
Me. Yeah, I've been in Colorado pretty high in the mountains. I'm now even higher than I was before at 8,300 feet. And I wake up hurting and I don't have nearly my energy. I imagine it's some sort of master plan to keep me still. But I'm taking liquid chlorophyll, which apparently is supposed to help. And I'm fine the rest of the day. I just wake up like I've been like sleeping on a rock or something. So it's a little challenging still. But I've met some wonderful people that are housing me in a mining town called Gold Hill. So I feel very fortunate to have met some kindred people. But I will keep saying that I'm challenged. It's a really challenging time for me. I'm not seeing the solutions. So I bring that into the space to all you kind-hearted people. Cute animal. I'm through.
Yep. And whatever, I'm fine too. I was trying to prepare for this meeting by exploring camera studio software in order to make it have better ways of mixing in watching a video or having effects or something, but I didn't finish doing that. But there could be ways of editing or manipulating what video you feed in as your picture here in Zoom. That could be a way of maybe seeing videos without sharing the whole screen. So I was exploring that for a little while, but I didn't totally get anywhere. Otherwise, I would have been able to show it today.
I did watch your videos, Tammy and Fleming together, and I watched your video with Tim Fleming. So I watched all of that.
Cool.
And I'm glad I did. I feel more acquainted. I know stuff about you and I didn't know, which is amazing because I've known you through all those time frames. So
Yep.
I'll share more in the call, but I just wanted to say that out loud too.
Very cool. And I probably still have some secrets left, but I'm glad you.
Nah.
Glad you watched it.
I imagine so. That'll work. Oh.
Anybody else? We're still just sort of checking in.
Figured out how to prop up.
I'm fine.
happy to be watching and watched. I missed that when I was just watching you and couldn't show up my face the last few times. And I'm back on the flat plane of Toulouse. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Sophie.
Well, I would share that I found one Easter egg. Some of you already know this, but I found one Easter egg on Sunday. I was out for a walk on the southern end of Camino Island, which is about 300 feet above the water. And I could look down on an eagle's nest. And I saw 2 eagles and a freshly laid eagle's egg in the nest. So I took some pictures. It's up on my Facebook wall, but I thought I'd share that. That's the one single Easter egg I found on Sunday.
High five.
Zeus was with me, huh? So he also saw it.
I had 2 chocolate malts yesterday. They're hard to find. You don't see them often, but I happened to have lunch at a noodle place, and across the street was another place, and they have actual real chocolate malts like I had when I was a kid long ago. I remember going into town from the farm a couple miles out of town, and this was pretty long ago, and I had my first chocolate malt, and they're hard. They're hard to find now, but this place still does it the old way. Powdered malt and the steel cup. There's just nothing quite like it. So I had 2 of them because I won't have any more for a few months now. Well, that's my big news.
Well, it was worth coming on the call just to hear that, Ron. Thank you.
All right, any other check-ins? Otherwise, we'll get started. Yeah.
I can check in, just didn't notice that the hour was already past, preparing our next Women Matters event. And after a wonderful Easter celebration we had here with summer weather, now it's cold again. Polar winds, really. So we have the heating on. That's my check-in for today.
Right, we can get started. Somebody suddenly started printing something next to me, which is making a lot of noise. But our experiment today is to watch the video from last time in some way. And I noticed we already have worked on that in the meantime in various ways. People have commented, made notes. I just noticed the thing you posted, Sam, which with time tagging and detailed quotes and who said what. And all of that is very interesting. So the task here is sort of to bring that together somehow. And maybe we will just simply start watching what we did last time, which was really meant to be the experiment. I'm not sure if we will make it through the whole thing. Probably, well, we don't have time for that. That would take several hours because we will need to talk about it. But we could start playing the video from last time and then stop and talk about it, unless somebody has ideas of going to specific points and looking at particular events. Should we just start from the beginning, or what do you guys think?
I wanted to make a quick preface about the item that I shared. Obviously, I could not get through the entire conversation, but I got through approximately the first 7 minutes of it, which may not be the most, meaty part of the conversation, but since I started at the beginning, I thought I'd share it. A quick note is that this is something that is obviously a derivative work from a conversation that I think might be helpful for future blogs or creation of artifacts or settling of disputes or learning of practices and whatever. So anyway, trying to have this raw record allows us to then look at what happened. So this is my very first, obviously not a cleaned up attempt at only the first 7 or 8 minutes of it. And the thing that I wanted to highlight is at around the end of it, around minute 7 or so, there are 3 links in the last column, in the rightmost column, that are taking you off of this document to a different construct, a different artifact. I hope I made the thing shareable, but if not, then I might have to share my screen to show you what it is. But anyway, it shows how some of this could tie together. So anyway, that's about as much introductory commentary as I want to provide to this. Over.
Cool. And a little technical thing that can be helpful for this kind of thing. When we post the video on YouTube, YouTube will usually automatically create a transcript of what was said. It takes them a while to do that, and it's not perfect. And when we post like an hour-long thing, it might take them a week or 2 before, I don't know what their algorithm is, but a week or 2 later, suddenly there are subtitles available to the video, which are automatically generated and which makes various kinds of errors. But one could take those subtitles, one can also download them as a text file. And so in order to create a transcript, it could be a considerably faster way of doing it to take what was automatically generated and clean that up, or pick out parts of it, because also it's time coded essentially, so you can see you can find a particular part more easily. Unfortunately, it takes them a long time. If it's just a couple of minutes of video, it takes them a few hours to do it. If it's an hour, I'm not sure if they always do it, but it seems to take at least a week before they do it, which throws a bit of a wrench in the system. But otherwise, that's an idea.
Is it directly available to anyone who you go to the link and can you find that or no?
Yeah, you go to YouTube and there's a little CC button at the bottom of the video which shows the choices of different subtitles, and it will show an English automatically created or something. And there could be, somebody could have generated subtitles for other languages and things like that. What I do when I do video blogging, which I haven't done recently, if I do a couple of minutes of video, I would myself afterwards take that automatically generated file and clean up the misunderstandings and edit it a little bit and remove my ahs and ums and repeated words and things like that. And that just takes a few minutes to do. And then I make the video public with the already having subtitles, which is kind of nice. So it's generally available and you can download it. So for example, what I do, I download it from YouTube. There's a utility for that somewhere. Then I could upload the subtitles to Facebook for if I share it somewhere else. Anyway, those are technicalities.
I just want to jump in and say how much I loved Ron's story. Ron, that was like amazing.
I thought it was very cool, and part of, well, we're not watching the video right now, but part of what it brought up for me looking at it, in watching last week's video, was I was thinking about our different modes of expressing ourselves, the different types of media. and how to best facilitate that. I mean, the best thing is not always to bring it all out in this conversation here. It could be like to doing a remix afterwards, like Ron did. It could be the way we take notes. It could be that we have one-to-one conversations in between and so forth. It's not that the ideal is that this is the end all of conversations, what we do here. So I love that we weave together these different other ways of doing it and other media, and like what Ron does there is an excellent example of that. It's another layer, and we create another layer here talking about our last week's video, and watching it would be another layer again. I think all of it is cool. Okay, so do we watch our video, or yeah, okay, let's do that. So, and I will share it, which means it takes over your screen, but you can still pipe in and tell me to stop when we need to talk about it. So I'm gonna try to share my screen. Hold on a second. That will just take me a moment, and my computer's a little slow. I hope it actually will survive doing that, but we'll see. And I'm going to share it with the sound, so let me know if there's any problem with that. So okay, now I'm going to start. We'll join, I'm sure, but we can start saying hello. So hi Sam, hi Heiner. And Frankie Lee is a bit in the dark, and there's Ron. So let's just do a quick check-in. I'm doing okay, I guess. I just spent like 2 hours with like an insurance salesman, which always sort of drives me into the ground. Going over what kind of life insurances and whatever else he offers. Like, I guess one needs to do that once in a while, but it makes me want to take a long nap afterwards. Anyway, otherwise I'm fine. How are you guys doing?
I'm actually having a great week.
I'm looking at everybody. Everybody looks pretty good.
Oops.
There she is.
And there's Tammy, and keep talking, Sam. Your sound is a little low.
Okay, I'll move the microphone closer. Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Yeah, I've just been having a really awesome week. Both my daughters have been with me the last 2 days. My older daughter just left yesterday, and they are so tight. It's just fun to watch. They're cooking and shopping together, and went out for brunches. And in the middle of all that, I had a little irritation this morning because my dog pooped a little bit on the floor. So I've been cleaning dog poop from the floor, wondering what that's all about. But otherwise, really enjoying the week. And I suspect, as is with Tammy, it's a little bit rainy this morning. It's coming down reasonably hard. So it's a really nice, peaceful, meditative pitter-patter of rain this morning. Over.
Well, we are approaching Easter here. It is also rainy, and I took how do you say, silent afternoon, listening into Tammy and the alphabet and Sam and his collaboratory or collaborology or whatever this science is about or this practice. And I really enjoyed it that I can do it at my time. Oh, I have to say, I first was watching it on my smartphone, and then I said, no, I have to hear it again and do it on the large screen, because in interesting conversations, it's much better to have a closer resolution or a bigger picture.
Thank you for listening to that, Heiner. I look forward to talking to you about it.
Cool.
Yes, it is raining in Van Groovy. But we had the sun come out yesterday, and it was amazing. And the thing about this place is it is a rainforest. So when it's doing its right thing, it is raining. But when the sun comes out, it's beautiful. So I've been super busy, really grateful to this group and to Sam and Harry and Fleming for the work we did this week. Over the last week, it's really beautiful and gratifying to be able to share and learn what others are up to. So grateful to be here.
Cool. Are you there, Frankie? Are you still moving around in strange kitchens? Well, it's all right. So the topic today is weaving our stories together, whichever form that will take. So the point is not particularly that we will just tell a lot of stories after each other, but somehow that stories are part of it, or story fragments can find ways of weaving together. So let's just take a moment to feel present, breathe a little bit, be aware of your own space and the space we share together here. And just start by sensing your own body, your own space, but also your own stories, your own experience. That all of us have stories and experiences, and somehow they will weave together, and they already weave together, and we might just need to become more aware of that. So whichever way that wants to start, let's just allow our story to start weaving.
I feel like we've been anticipating some of this because some of that weaving has happened, you know? The meeting of Fleming and Tammy and myself, and then Harry and Tammy, and Tammy and me. And upcoming, I'm looking forward to other chats that have already been happening. I don't know if you've known, I've already had offline conversations with Mila, and one hopefully soon with Heiner. So I feel a lot of that interweaving has been very possible and has already started. So thank you.
I'd like to jump in and I've had Anila.
Hi, just 1 second.
I think Ron is taking a call. So I was about to talk about him. I mean, so a couple months ago, I'm going to wait until he's listening.
So, okay, how about we talk about we should talk about a little bit along the way, and when there's sort of some key points. So, so like what's happening here, I think Joachim called it that we are holding space for Ron, and that was kind of a lovely thing, and I agree. We're seemingly okay with waiting for Ron to have a phone call without having a great urge to say anything. I think eventually I get impatient and say something, but otherwise we're just sort of there.
Fleming, can we go back and forth between them? Or is it too much of a pain?
So that we see ourselves rather than sharing? Yeah, let me try to, yeah, that should be possible. I don't know if it's too much of a pain, but we'll try it.
So part of why I wanted to point out Ron in that moment was because the conversation that we'd had, and I just really felt the piece of what a conversation is and what playing music is, and that present time, you know, a conversation is like music in a different way. And I also felt like I had been doing a lot with other people, and I wanted to focus on all of us as a group. So that's part of why I chose to do that.
Okay, so that brings up a couple of things for me. Like it's both you sense there was a certain piece that really would be very appropriate here, and that's a piece that emerged in a conversation with Ron, and then you sort of refer to Ron to sort of give us the insight on that piece kind of thing, which I think is both very good, and at the same time, sometimes we're not ready to do that. Like I'm like, here, okay, now over to you, Tammy. Will you explain what this is all about? And you might not totally not be in that space to do that. So I think that's many interesting things came out of it, but at the same time, I felt that Ron wasn't necessarily ready to just tell you what that piece was. So it took a little while to sort of get that out. So to me, it gives a little bit of the risk of passing the ball to somebody else who maybe didn't want it at that time or didn't know what to do with it. So at the same time, that's interesting. I mean, interesting things come out of that.
Probably did want it. I often do have difficulty talking about it or all of it. And a lot of it is just beyond words. So, and probably part of the reason why I'm a musician. And that was part of your point, Tammy, in a way, about I don't know if we're talking about flow necessarily, but relating that to music as a metaphor for what we try to do here. And see, so I'm just kind of, I'm doing the same thing I did before. I can't really just nail it because you can't nail it. Except by doing it in the moment. And I wouldn't have, I had to take that call. My wife was calling from the hospital, in case anybody now wants to know. So I really had to follow up on it. And everything's fine, of course. There's no, I probably wouldn't be talking about it so glibly if everything wasn't just fine. But I had to take the call. And so that was pretty ridiculous. Everything's just treading water at that point. But anyway, I was willing to do it and wanted to do it, but it just came out like it's coming out now. And but I was gratified to see that if somebody can help me with the pronunciation of, let's see, Csikszentmihalyi. Pardon?
Csikszentmihalyi?
Csikszentmihalyi. Zen commented on him in the community. He posted a comment, and I knew about the guy, but then I went ahead and checked his video out, and his delivery is a lot like mine, grasping and struggling, and so that was kind of gratifying. So, and his point was really important too. And I know I wanted to say that. I'm so glad that because the comment you made, Frankie, his conclusion that I saw of his TED Talk was, I think it's right along the lines you were talking about. And I have his exact quote. He's at the end of the TED Talk, he said, the question we are trying to address is how to put more and more of everyday life in the flow. So he's the flow guy. He invented the term, and he's some kind of master of the idea of flow. And your comment, Frankie, about how we just set aside this other thing that we call art, and then we kind of leave our life to go do the art and make some artifact. And really, it belongs just in everyday life. I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were saying, but I related his comment to that. And that's my conclusion for the moment.
That was close. That was very close to it. I appreciate that. You know, when I was watching this new footage from last week, I felt like the thing that stayed with me the most was very early when Fleming said to sense in. And I feel like we could be sensing in all the way through, you know, rather than like a moment of directive, maybe even pacing ourselves where when it comes our time to talk, we actually kind of sink in and find out, feel that we space so that we could maybe, I don't know, this is just what I'm picking up, you know, be more speaking collectively, you know, yes, it's still me, Frankie Lee, but me, Frankie Lee, as part of this, would she say the same things as she might if she was reporting about, you know, like, I don't know, sleeping hard on the bed this morning. So that kind of came up for me as an attention that we could bring into it. And then when Tammy shared about how she wanted to have it be a group experience, perhaps we have these things that we think inside ourselves, but we don't say out loud, that would be pertinent to say a little bit more out loud, like to contextualize so we understand what the intention is, if that's possible, and not as a mechanical thing. But that came up for me as like some awareness is just in this brief conversation. And that's it for me. All that next. Off somehow.
Well, we could continue or something. I don't know. I just sort of stopped us because there was probably a good point to talk about what happened there.
Well, just as a logistical issue, this is about as far as I got when I was trying to do an example of a time browser transcript. So the thing I wanted to point out is, and I don't want to focus necessarily on the content of the node, but just on the availability of the node, is if you click on the link that I put in the chat here, it's also in the event announcement on Facebook. But if you click on that link, you get to a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet that has an initial attempt at a transcript of this. But the last 3 entries have links on the rightmost column. And I was just wondering whether those links were traversable by you. If you can actually see what's at the other end of that link, there are nodes in a map. And the map is a work in progress. It's not necessarily a mind map because it's not rooted in a single node, but it's a networked brain around collaborology ideas. So I just was able to link from the spreadsheet to a specific node in collaborology to say, this is one way we could possibly extract an insight or a lesson learned when we actually go to a transcript like this. Okay, so that's just an example I just wanted to highlight.
And I could click on it just to let you know. I mean, you click on it, then it pops up the URL, you click on that. And by the way, I also use the brain. I like it a lot. I think it would be lovely to use, but one problem with it is that it costs a lot of money sort of individually to license it. So it's maybe not suited for like all of us to share a mind map necessarily.
Yeah, I wasn't proposing that we do all of that, but I just wanted to give you an example of what it is that's possible. Yeah, thank you.
Sam, I haven't found it yet.
I wanted to share that there is a free tool, and I think it is called bubble.us. They can find it and for mind mapping, so we don't have to pay. I will find it and put it in the comments.
And Heiner, do you see the chat from this particular meeting? The first thing I put in this chat, I think, is a link from me to everyone.
Yes.
So you don't have to go back to Facebook. You can actually look in the chat, and I think the link is there.
You write my first comment, I love online video, but I don't see a link there.
Just above that. Just above that.
What are we doing right now?
So we're
I see.
we're
I see
looking.
it from Fleming to all, web brain.
Yeah, we're looking at Sam's notes from the last meeting, and in there was a link to a mind map of a possible way of thinking about this. At this point, there are various issues that can sort of branch off. And what are we doing right now? I don't know if we're answering that. Is that a trick question, Tim?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is figuring out how to extract insight from the conversation that we've been viewing. And my attempt was just one slice of how we might be able to reconstruct and then extract possible insight and to possibly record it and then to share it. So that's the extent of my contribution there.
I find it interesting that the technical pieces take us out of the present moment of actually biologizing what that insight process is. Just a note. So maybe we can be in our bodies a bit more and experience and share from that place.
I guess one devil's advocate point for technology is that, yes, it does do that, but it also allows us then to go back and actually make a different kind of a visit to the event if we actually had a transcript like this. Now, I understand that introducing it is a bit of an obstacle and a hiccup, but I just wanted to not just ignore the potential value of it either. Okay, I'm done.
I'm sort of in both camps. Like I can imagine that technology can help us sense other parts of it. Like we can see how it branches off, seeing it in different layers at the same time. But our human technology is often a little too complex, so we end up in a discussion about why it's not working or which button to push and so forth. So it's too primitive.
Yeah, that's the. It is primitive, and so we end up with a lot of. It is very easy to get preoccupied with some of the details and trying to work everything out, and I don't really do a whole lot of that currently. But I am able to do both, and I have feeling in technical stuff too. And mental work is physical work, and I can feel it, and I can. So it's definitely a precarious, though. It is easy to. It's just a balance, I guess.
So I definitely did not have any intention of denigrating the offering, Sam. Just in terms of that, I think that there's this thing that we're all here gathered. Our attention is focused. How do we drive the ship? And I think that's what we've been feeling into. And so what I heard from Tim is, what are we doing right now? And so I felt into my body and I was like, we're all here gathered to focus our attention. What are we going to choose to focus our attention on? And can we be in our bodies? And what do we choose to do? What's next?
And I think it's interesting to look at what these barriers do, like a distraction or a question. Like often we have a somewhat automatic way of dealing with it. There's a technical problem, half of us get engaged in solving that technical problem just to move on, but then we use all the attention on that. Or if somebody asks a question, it might or might not be a relevant or appropriate question, but a lot of people feel like questions need to be answered. So we engage in answering that question and then we spend all the energy on that. So sensing into what actually needs to happen is a little tricky with these kinds of distractions. We're all nice people who try to accommodate by responding appropriately, and often that gets in the way.
Yeah, when I throw a brick in the room, there's nothing personal about it. It's just a general thing.
For me, it introduces a question of how do we introduce new perspectives or new methods or new skills that may not be in the sweet spot of those that we have mastered or think we have mastered, or at least those we are comfortable with. So we can stay in flow if we are comfortable. And this harks back to one of the very earliest conversations that I joined, which was called Uncomfortable Conversations, I think it was. And I was wondering if there was a way to appropriatize the introduction of new methods, perspectives, skills, technologies, etc., without taking us out of flow. That's a question.
What I was hearing was that we're starting to be able to distinguish that we each have gifts. I mean, that's how I was hearing it. And for instance, I've known Fleming for years, and I am very happy to rely on him for technological stuff. I'm complete ditz. And when I went over to your link, it took me that whole time to get back to this page. So but I get that the gifts are in the space that we could utilize. And maybe that's the indicators of how we go beyond this particular conversation to the larger conversation and who groups up. Like I really loved the one-on-one that Tammy and Fleming did, and that Fleming and Tim did. I felt like, wow, if we got ourselves represented there, we could really rely on knowing who's good at what, and we could start to weave over and beyond this conversation. So that, I think we have to have a certain, maybe it's discomfort, but just understand that the exercise right now is exploratory. And so we're going to have the stuff show up. That showing up is actually a primary. So that's what I have to say. Okay. If I could turn this off.
You see, I was very intrigued when Sam asked the question to Tammy at the end of her presentation on the alphabet, is it done in other languages? And how does it fit there? And I think this 27 faces, I would not like to call them blocks, are very interesting to show meaning in a rudimentary or in a meaningful way by outspelling the name of a person. For me, this bridging between the local picture and the global picture, and the picture of Tim and the picture of Frankie, that is very interesting. And that, I think, is for me this meaning blocks and meaning frames. How can we go to a big picture, to a bird's eye, and come back and not get lost? So how can we show in an extra view where I am, where are you, where are our comments, and where I might get lost somewhere in an alien universe?
So just a quick note on that one. I think each of these artifacts, they're new, so they're uncomfortable. We're not familiar with them, but they're each attempts at maps. They're each attempts to bring context. Like the brain was one, the transcript is one. And audio, the video is actually a map to the whole conversation as well. Even just the 3x3 set of pictures that I see of each of you is a map that I can then relate, among each other. So all those maps, once we are familiar with them and have mastered them and understand how we navigate from one-to-one or pivot from one-to-one, I think that gives us an ability to draw connections and insights that without the map, we would be doing that individually, if at all, and certainly not able to share. Over.
Well, I think also that this is an exercise in how can we expand. Like we know already that we can sit and be quiet together and feel quite present. So it's a question, what happens if we actually address a topic or something to do, or we try to actually make things happen together, or we use different technologies? Can we maintain this kind of presence, does it still work? And we discover that there are challenges. We introduce something a little technical, and then we get lost in technical details. It's not a problem. It's part of the experiment. But and maybe we can do both at the same time. We can still feel present in our body, even though we're looking at a mind map or somebody's having a technical problem or something. It doesn't have to exclude each other. So I think we're feeling a little bit of the pains of exploring how we can expand into doing more things, and that necessarily runs into some parts that are either uncomfortable or difficult or inefficient. Like, I also would resonate with what Frankie Lee said. Like, if we actually have a task at hand, we need some kind of awareness of who's good at what. We each have different skills and different fortes, and that's not a problem. It's not judging us or ranking all of us, but we each have different kinds of things. Like, if somebody needs to ask some very poignant leading questions, then Tammy is very good at that. If someone needs to summarize it in a quick sentence, like, Sam is probably really good at that. Creating a multimedia fictional kind of remix out of it, Ron is an absolute master at that. But if we wanted somebody to give a speech to the United Nations, I probably wouldn't pick Ron to do that. I would pick somebody else. I don't know who, but so that we each have different strengths, and so that doesn't mean we should stay within those and only do those things. This is an experiment, and part of it is to do some of those things we can't do. But if we actually have some tasks at hand and things to do, we probably need that awareness of who does that flow well for.
I think if we're really present to what's going on, then who is good for the particular moment just emerges anyway. And I would argue that it's not necessary for everyone to even know that, or to know that someone is good at something. I think if we're actually in that place, then it just occurs. And whoever has that skill, it comes up in them to then step forward and take it on. So I don't know whether that's clear, but that it seems to me like it's a lot simpler, and we have a tendency, I think, as people, to overcomplicate something or to add in layers that maybe are not actually helping the bigger picture. It's just a sense I have.
I agree. I would like things to just flow by each person just sort of picking the part that flows for them. But I think one thing that gets in the way is sometimes we have an ideal somewhere that we're supposed to be able to do certain things. And so sometimes we will volunteer for something we maybe shouldn't have volunteered for because we don't really know what to do with it, but it somehow everybody else did it. So now it's my turn, so I have to do it, even though I maybe felt more like being quiet, for example. So I think we also need to allow ourselves to not just volunteer for whatever is in the air. I mean, maybe sometimes it's better to take a nap and do nothing and let the other people who seem to know what to do their thing.
To me, there's a yin and yang and a sense of scale at question. So, Tim, I'm very much in meditation with your question, because for much of the time I've dealt with other colleagues, this emergence idea has been a very attractive and aesthetic one. But there's also the dot in each of the parts of the yin yang. And that relationship with the strategic, the universe, indicates that there's direction that is potentially different for each of us. So if I think that there's a calling that I have to contribute in a certain way at a certain moment, and I'm headed in this direction, and you're headed in that direction because of your aesthetics and your background and your context, it might look to you like I am a distraction. And likewise, vis-a-vis, etc. So without that shared strategic direction, which does take some time to emerge, because I guess my fundamental assumption is we don't just automatically share it in our DNA, you know? I'm not clear that it is. So until we have that notion of some intermediate range or strategic range that we share and agree upon, the potential that my contribution is a distraction and a deviation is too strong for each of you. And likewise, I think. So I just wanted to put that out there and see if that's a thing that can be contemplated even as we feel present and even as we try to navigate the tactical and the immediate contributions. I'm not even sure that made sense to each of you. So we're using different language also.
What I hear you say, Sam, it made in me arrive the idea that this is evolution in progress. We are trying to find a way to collaborate, and it's so difficult. How can it emerge, you know? Everybody with their own, I feel tired and you feel blah, blah. And imagine if we 9 people are in this situation, how the whole world is.
And I feel like this work helps us to widen our pipe to be able to hold more. And, you know, in sharing with Fleming, one of the things that I was really feeling is that the heavy lifting is in the listening and in being able to really deeply take that in and hear and take in more. And so I'm really excited about that work, but it's a bit unseen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm perhaps not very clear or very good at explaining what I'm experiencing. But I didn't feel or sense any kind of oppositional or contrary experience to you, Sam, or hold you as kind of doing something wrong or any of that. I merely, when I did that interrupt, it was just a general sense of it didn't feel like it was working. It wasn't at all, as I said. It wasn't a personal thing. It just so happened that you were speaking at that moment. So yeah, and I don't see myself as the yin or the yang or or the big white bit or the black dot or any of that. I kind of tend to visit all those places. Yeah.
I feel it's getting complicated for me to try to watch the weavings, because the weaving for me is just like an embryo. It's just started, and the starting point for me was when we were telling our stories, and this was such a good grounding for ideas to pop in and to be creative amongst us and to get our capabilities and experience together and growing. When I listen to you all, I feel, maybe because I haven't been present the last 2 sessions, but I really feel either left behind or too far ahead. I don't know in terms of space where I stand. But one thing is so strong in me is that I feel I would like to spend time with you, Tammy, because I've got a lot of questions about consideration, happiness, and money. And it's like a huge workplace. I feel you are the person I want to start tackling that with you. Frankie, I feel lost because I don't know you well enough, and I haven't heard your story, except you have known Fleming for many years, and that's all what I've got. Fleming, I've just heard something I missed during the previous session about you getting an headache by an insurance guy, and I think I would love to start weaving a story about that with you. Ron, I think the bond with you in terms of music is there, and one day I want to dig into that with you. Tim, I've remembered the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks now about your Jedi school, and I want so much to contribute and to give you some of my idea and to start weaving. Sam, I think I would like to start weaving with you about dancing. I'm lost when I hear about your ideas about how to extract the very essence of our weaving, because I'm either too far ahead or too far behind. Heidi, I think I want to learn more about you, and we've got to have a one-to-one. And Heine, one of the pioneers, I really want to start thinking about mediation and roundtable with you. So I'm having a kind of excitation in my tummy, and I don't know, maybe I'm left behind or I'm too far ahead. I have no idea, but I had to tell you all of that.
And now you're right here.
As are we all.
So, Sophie, let's consider just a moment. You would write into such a 3x3, 9 fields, what you were just saying, where your focus is. We called it with Erwin Laszlo seeds of change. Seeds, and then you see that many seeds are, for example, with Fleming or with Sam. Then you see where weaving has a gravity, what I call the magic. And then it is shared meaning, shared frames. And very often I'm out of the frame. But that is not the point. The point is, can we bring it together? And can we find time slices so the others are not bored?
You're talking about organization, time. You know, it's what Ron inspired me when he was describing his cathedral before putting it into word onto the thread in writing was I'm lost for words now. I'm lost for words. But yeah. It's not only time management, is how I can focus and slice, share of times like you slice a banana. Over to you.
Well, this is also a little bit of a model of what it means to collaborate or weave or connect, like to actually be aware of, like, here are these people on the screen, what am I attracted to with each of them? What rings a bell? What piece do I have? And to make that more real and have a pathway for that to flow. So it's not just that we're here and we're present, we're having a good time, but then how can we move with it? So in a sense, it would be a good idea to do something like what Sophie just demonstrated. What is it I want to do with Ron? What do I want to do with Heiner? And maybe it flows, maybe it doesn't, but there should be some kind of, or it might make sense to have some interaction in that direction and find out how to do that.
Since I'm fairly new and just kind of, like awkwardly finding my way, the things that I've found to take steps with are, responding to the invitation to watch Tammy and Fleming, to watch Fleming and Tim, to watch some of last week's video, all of which obviously were time commitments, but I sort of worked it in. And then I reached out to Fleming and Tammy. And I have to say, I was a little disappointed because I felt like, oh gosh, now I can take an action. But we're all busy people too. So we also have these, like lives beyond this particular hour. And how do we, consider in a whole new format or group of people? I also find myself hesitating to bring what I think is strong in me, because I don't want to be too strong in the space. Like I've done nothing but weaving for 20 years and I have structures that I could be sharing, and we could potentially choose one or many of them and be in action if for the people who want to be in action. But it's like I haven't mentioned it till now, because oh, I'm finding my way, so I would like to consider that, having everybody's email and sending some documents if you're open for those who are interested to see it. I don't know what systems are in place for that. So I bring it up not as an example of my stuff, but as is there some way to do that? I tried becoming Facebook friends and joining in Messenger personally with some of the people, but I couldn't find everybody's names. So I just bring that up as how do we have the weave be over, beyond, and inclusive of this, and then what's the purpose of this particular space?
Frankie, we tried with this format of what is your burning thing? They called it hot seat. Maybe you also have 3-5 points you want to share as your nuggets, your seeds. I only had 3 seeds, but it already took us 1 hour.
I actually really love the idea of the one-on-ones as a place that people can reference, so that we don't all have to sit there with each person, but we can kind of, oh, maybe I'll have this, like what would a conversation, like Fleming with Tim was different than Fleming with Tammy, maybe we just find, some people that we want to do one-on-ones with, and we start to see how the weave lives in different combinations too. That's what I picked up watching that was, oh, I want to do some one-on-ones. So, and I'll do that too, 3 to 5 on a list or something, but I don't need you all to like sit there and watch me or something.
And how we organize it, that's not necessarily given or written yet. I mean, it's something to work out between us. I mean, we can, if we need some tools for it, we can probably figure that out. So the idea is to not write the organizational plan in advance. It's just an experiment. It evolves, but sometimes we need something to move forward, or something crystallizes. So it's all open. We're getting towards the end. Maybe we can do a little feedback meta on how did this work. The idea was that we were watching the video. We didn't really watch very much of it. I don't know if I should have let it run or started again, but tell me how this worked.
I can start because watching the video I found very boring at the beginning with all the introductions and blah, 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 blah. So I was a bit turned away. And then during the conversation today, I noticed several moments of, how do you say, of group revivement and then going back again and coming back again. I don't know if it's only me or if it's everybody, but there were changes in energy, at least for me. But I think in everybody, you see it a little bit in the faces. And so I found it very interesting to notice that and see the aliveness in this way, not necessarily only the words. There were some interesting things too, very much, but also to be able, even online, to sense these things. That's what I find interesting.
I feel that in future such conversations, we will use much more breakout rooms. We will use them more intuitively. So I can immediately go with Sophie and Sam in one room, and maybe we come out again after 3 minutes, but then follow up the thread with the others is my point. The other point, I liked this. I was also bored by looking to an old conversation I could listen to on my own, and misusing the time of us 9 being together, because I think this together is precious. And I feel a little bit saddened because there was so much interest in the science, Joachim, and the conversations on YouTube, on the alphabet. What are the meanings of these blocks? How they link together? there's so much time being lost in between that I'm sometimes feel a little bit hesitant now, out of patience. But this is me. I, in the beginning, before you all joined, spoke with Tammy about this meaning blocks with the Chinese, where they take the meanings in the context to learn with children. It's not developed by the Chinese, but by an Italian lady. I was putting it into Facebook and now into the chat space. Maybe this is something where we can bridge other mindsets or other sign systems. I liked it, and 9 is a great format. 7 plus minus 2, it's an old rule for group conversations.
I think it's really useful for us to be conscious of us observing ourselves. And even though we didn't watch very much of the video, and it does feel odd to focus on a past moment, I think that there's a lot of power in us watching and observing how we are, how we interact, where it goes off, where it really sits on, you know, that open space that Heidi just talked about, that kind of something's happening that's beyond us and greater than the sum of the parts.
I think there's great power in just that in itself. Yeah, us watching ourselves. That doesn't have to take this form that we watch our old video again. I mean, what's next? Then we're going to watch ourselves watching our old video and seeing what we feel about that. I think we maybe can evolve a way of being aware of ourselves at several levels without it being a matter of taking a lot of time to watch everything. I mean, ultimately, we don't have time to do that. The more videos and one-on-ones and different layers we have, I mean, it's a full-time job, and then what? So, but I think we will evolve some way of doing it anyway. I don't know how, but I think we're developing a sense of being aware of ourselves at several levels.
Being aware of ourselves, and that's why the video was... I could have been bored, but I wasn't bored just because I was engaging and improving the observation skills. Just kind of casually, though, you know, drinking my tea and just observing and learning from it. And it would have been boring if I was just trying to extract all the content, I guess. So I think it was just as you just it supports just what you were talking about, Fleming, I think, and just being aware of ourselves, sharpening observation skills, self-observation.
Thank you for saying that, Ron. I was also far from bored because it's great fodder for collaborology. And I, as an amateur collaborologist, you know, find it just immensely enriching to be able to do this kind of study and to have 9 of us at least begin understanding what it might take to do that. I certainly don't recommend we do this for every conversation, but I think there is a set of insight that one or more of us could get by doing this and possibly trying to just push the envelope on collaborology. So I at least wanted to say that I appreciate this attempt, and I will be doing that myself, okay, on other conversations.
I feel like I was stretching to not be judgmental or bored. I was okay with it, but it wouldn't be my personal life choice to analyze to that degree. I feel like the way that I understand collaboration best is in collaborating and actually taking something into action and finding out how we all show up. And I'd like to just put that out as something beyond how to do conversations as a way to exercise some muscles and discover together. And maybe that's a small group of us, maybe that's all of us, but that to me, it's like I've been on the planet 63 years. I don't have a lot of time to be exploring on my way to I really want to be in it. So that's my personal feedback.
Personally, Sam, when I think of all your idea you're putting it up and structure about collaboration, collaborology, I feel the basis for me is getting ideas coming up, sharing ideas, and getting excited about it. So that's the only grounding I can rely on. And I know when it's there and I know when it's not. So I find it difficult to make a theory out of it. But I know that during some experiments, ideas, when I hear stories, when I pick up some words, I'm going to have ideas and I think, oh, we could do this and I could say that and we could do that. And that's what you were saying, Frankie. It's when I feel my hands are on, that collaboration means something. And it's so linked with creativity. I don't know how to define it differently.
Okay. Any final comment? Otherwise, we're probably at the end. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say. So how about I tell you thank you for coming. This is the end of this session. After we stop here, there'll be a short planning session for next time. But otherwise, thank you for coming. Hope to see you again and collaborate and converse and weave in a variety of ways. So, ciao.
Bye.